streams, Mike Avery's voice fulfills the dream. Started out on TV5, a young man keen. Now host the best outdoor scene. 30 years down the trail, he's still strong, hunting whitetails and casting lines all day long. With a voice that guides you through morning fog, top of the dial out on the morning jog. Oh, Mike Avery, master of the wild, your stories and laughter keep us beguiled. Every fish that you catch, every hunt you embrace, brings us closer to nature's grace. In autumn's hunt or summer's fish, he lives a life.
Good evening, my friends. How are you? I'm trying the new theme song. I'm not sure I like it. I think I like the other music better. Maybe I will try it next week with a video intro using the same song. Kind of egotistical to use this song, isn't it? Rabbit Homesteading, you were in there early. Mad Jack was in there early. Cliff, how are you this evening? Craig, always a pleasure, my friend. Nice to have you along with us. Sean, Paul, Michelle. Hey, Pastor, how are you? Where'd you go? Pastor, nice to have you with us. How is your fall going? I like this song, but I think it's probably not the best song for this. I think I'll go back to the other stuff. Other music. Lori, how are you? Martin, a pleasure. Dan, thanks for joining me. Yeah, I'm more rock too. It is a good song. I don't know. Maybe use it for the end of the show only. That's a pretty good idea, Cliff. What about this? What if I start out with the old theme, the hardcore driving theme, and then wrap it up with this? Maybe that's a good idea. Good thinking, Cliff. Hey, Cap, how are you? Lane's with us tonight. Good evening, Lane. Rick checking in. How are things in your world tonight, Rick? My name is Mike Avery, and this is Wednesday Night Live here in the home studio. Rabbit says, good idea, Cliff. I think so, too. Tony, how you doing, buddy? Tony, the Angler Quest is finally going to come out of the water. I haven't used it in a long time. Finally going to pull it. Jim checking in from Tennessee. I've moved on. I haven't fished out of the Angler Quest in a long time now. There is an Angler Quest check that. There is an Angler Quest dealers meeting next Monday where Brad Dupuis unveils 5 of his new boats. I'm going to be there. How cool is that? Tommy, good evening. Checking in from the deer blind. Anything? Tommy, I'll be quiet. I'll be real quiet so nothing sneaks up on you. Jim says, poor Johnny isn't a deer whisperer. Nothing but problems at his deer camp. Yeah, Johnny Bowler, the bear whisperer. And by the way, last week I was joking around about how I had to gut my own deer or gut my own bear. And what did Johnny think I was paying him for? If you knew me and you knew Johnny, we were very good friends. I was busting his chops. People cut out that excerpt from my live stream, sent it to Johnny and said, hey, Avery's mad at you. No, Avery's not mad at the bear whisperer. I was just kidding around. But anyway, what Johnny did was he smucked a deer with his truck the other night. Little 4-point. He said, not bad, just enough to make him mad. Tommy says, nothing yet. Real quiet evening in the woods. I will be out there tomorrow night. That is the plan, at least. Trying to shoot a big doe. I have no illusions that a decent buck is going to walk in front of me on the property where we are. There are a couple of them out there we've seen on trail camera. As soon as the baiting starts around us, they'll be drawn to that bait. In fact, they're probably already baiting now. So we see them after dark. I'm just, long story short, what I'm trying to do is kill a big doe. That's my goal for the season, to kill a big doe. That's not a lofty goal. Is it, God? That's not too much to ask, is it? Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. I had a good spring. I took a turkey, had a good early season with the bear, took a nice bear. Now I just want to shoot a doe. That's all. Just a doe. If a decent buck walks in front of me, I'll shoot him, but I just want to shoot a doe. David, good evening. Dennis. Oh, he got stung in the lip by a bee. Oh my gosh. Johnny is having a rough time now, isn't he? Johnny, I am sorry to hear that. Dean, good evening. How are you? Thanks for joining us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. So it is fall. We are cruising through the fall season. Temperatures are cooler. It was pretty chilly this morning. Sean says, will you have some pictures and or videos of the 5 new boats? You can count on it. Paul says it's pretty swollen. I got a Johnny. Jon Johnny Bowler. I hear you got stung. What's going on up there? To Johnny Bowler. Tim checking in from Big Rapids. How are you, Tim? Spent a few years at Big Rapids when I was at Ferris. At the time, Ferris State College, now university. Rabbit homesteading, hitting a deer, especially going to work, sucks. But in my own time, it gets freezer. What is usable? Yeah, Brian, just a nice big doe. Not looking for anything special. Just a nice big, he says, not my week, I'll tell you. A nice big doe to walk out in front of me at about 25 yards and quarter away. Tim, good evening. Hey, Brian. Thank you. John says, nice doe during the early doe season. Good. So you got venison in the freezer. My bear meat right now is at Michigan Brand. They are making it into a few brats. Only 25% brats. The other 75% is going into bear burger. As much as we love brats, sorry. As much as we love brats, burger is great because you can put burger in everything. Tacos, burgers, lasagna, spaghetti. And bear burger is pretty tasty. You got to put a little bit of pork or something in there to get it a little less dry. Paul, my killer food is having about 6 deer hanging out in them. We've got deer coming in just after dark. Just after dark. I was out there last Friday night, stayed till I couldn't see anymore, scanned the field with my scope and my bare eyes, couldn't see a thing. Packed up my stuff and walked out, didn't see a thing. And my son James was watching the camera, said, hey, did you see those deer that were out there when you walked out? I said, no. They snuck out there in the 2 minutes that I was packing my stuff up. But as soon as I walked through, they came right back out. So I didn't spook them too bad. Tim's going to drop his boat off at Linwood to be winterized right here. I'm with you, Tim. I'm probably just going to put it on a trailer and run it up on a trailer and take care of it that way this year. Bernie, good evening. How are you? Johnny Bowler. Johnny, what's going on, buddy? You had a wonderful bear season. You had an outstanding... Oh, Johnny. Oh, Johnny. Johnny just sent me a picture. Johnny, I'm laughing, but I'm sorry. Johnny had a great bear season. He clipped a deer last night. Now he got stung in the lip by a bee, and his lip is so swelled up, I don't know how he can swallow anything. And Johnny, I was telling the story about how people took my context last week about you not being a full service guide service, that I had to gut my own bear, just joking around. And then they called and giving you grief, said Avery's mad at you. Avery's not mad at you, but you know that. Johnny, what do you do for that? Put ice on it? Benadryl? Gosh, that doesn't look very good. Paul says he's getting daylight deer, hoping to get up this weekend. Nothing like daylight deer. Johnny, I'm looking at the picture right now. Holy cow. Dennis, good evening. How are you? Johnny, I'm not laughing at you, Johnny, but you have to admit, if you hadn't seen that picture and it just showed up in your text messages, you'd be laughing too. Tigers won. Tigers won. Art Lewis from WSTW. How you doing, buddy? Rabbit Homesteading says, Art, good to see you. Craig says, I bet Johnny can still drink a beer. His lip is swelled up from like here over to here. So he could probably get a sip of a beer right in here. I bet he can. I bet he can quit it. Iced it. It's way a lot better. Hey, Steve, good evening. How are you? Steve, you weren't an elder tonight, were you? It was my plan to get over there, but things came up. I couldn't make it. Mad Jack, good evening, buddy. How are you? Okay, so what's on the agenda for tonight? Fall. We're ripping through fall now. It's cold. The leaves are changing. It's beautiful. Some of the leaves are dropping. Can you get over how much corn is down already? Now, I remember lots of years where mid-November, the opening day of gun season, there was still a lot of standing corn. I doubt if there will be much standing corn by November 1st this year. Now, that's good news for hunters, right? Why is that? Because deer love to hide in standing corn. It's real tough, sort of a combine or a deer drive to get deer out of standing corn. They can bed in there, they can breed in there, they can chase in there, they can eat in there. If they're standing water, there's no reason to leave the standing corn. So the fact that it's going to be down is a good thing for deer hunters. Lori says he can use a straw. Francis, good evening. How are you? Johnny said he was drooling on himself trying to drink a beer. John, I got stung by a ground hive I stepped on by my shed in Atlanta 7 years ago. It still itches hard. Those ground bees, what are those? What are those? What are the hornets? What are the bees that live in the ground that are so aggressive and they will chase you? We had a nest in the backyard of the old house. I mowed over the top of it and they chased me across the rest of the yard. I got stung a bunch of times. Yeah, they're nasty. What are those things? The ground bees. What are they called though? Good evening, Mickey. How are you? Paul says he had the same thing happen to him in the late 90s. Chris says is it yellow jackets? Yellow jackets. Yes, thank you. Chris said it's an awesome evening in Kansas. How is the Avery food plot doing, Chris? Anybody shoot anything out of it yet? Craig, look what I'm not drinking the Johnny Bowler mug. I'm drinking the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation mug tonight. Yellow jackets, yellow jackets, yellow jackets. Everybody says they're yellow jackets. Yes, and they are nasty, aren't they? Anybody who's been stung by yellow jackets knows just how nasty those are. Johnny said, I'm glad he didn't swallow it. He was taking a drink. Rob Sador checking in from White River, Ontario, Canada. How are things in the beautiful north? Ground bees almost killed you a few years ago. Paul's getting deer pics now. Woohoo. What are you looking for, Paul? Will you take a big doe? Will you take a small buck? You holding out for a big buck? What's on your mind? Because it's different for everybody, right? Let's see what the Rabbit Homesteading has to say. I let it run. Yeah, boy, they're just nasty, aren't they? They're so, but I love to find a nest and then get revenge. Go in there at night when they're not active, spray poison down there and cover the hole and just listen to it. Listen to their little screams. You can't really hear it, but I'd like to imagine their little bees down there are screaming. Pretty morbid, isn't it, Avery? I've been out a couple of times. Like I said, my goal is to shoot a doe. Now, that's one of the reasons why one of the things I like about deer hunting, there's a lot of things I don't like about deer hunting, but the fact that hunting and fishing in general in this outdoor lifestyle, it's a very personal experience. It is what you want it to be, whether it's hunting or fishing, but in particular hunting. You set your own goals. Like for some people who buy into this whole modern culture of deer hunting, it has to be one of their target bucks. They have to have named it. It has to be on their hit list. It has to be a mature buck. They have to shoot it. They have to have sheds from previous years. They have to have trail camera pictures of the animal before it's a legitimate harvest in their eyes. I don't buy into that. At this point in my life, I'm not interested in shooting a 1.5-year-old buck, just because I've shot a bunch of them. But I don't care if you do, and I mean that sincerely. I could care less. Unlike some of the hardcore true antler point zealots who would give you grief if you didn't let it go and let it grow. I say it, hunt your hunt. It's your hunt. Do what you want. If you want to shoot a small buck and you're happy with it and it's going to feed your family, God bless you. Seriously. If you want to hold out for a big buck, good for you. But don't try to tell me or other hunters that this is the way we should do it. In my case, I just want to shoot a big doe. Francis, Mike, can you get in touch with me, please? Francis, the best way to do this is, and for all of you, I'll tell you right now, I very much dislike social media messaging because I get inundated by it. I get bombarded by it. And a lot of those messages fall through the cracks. If you want to get in touch with me, just call me on my cell. The number is 98. You didn't really think I was going to give my cell out, did you? Send me an email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That is the single best way to get in touch with me. And Francis, I will look forward to getting an email from you. Chris says, no one has hunted it yet. Still too warm. They're tearing it up. Paul says, I'm an APR zone, so it has to be 3 on one side, but I'll just take a doe. Johnny says there's a ton of deer up there in Menominee if he can just get out in the woods without running into deer and getting stung. Well, he didn't really say that. I added that last part. Johnny's the bee whisperer. Afternoon, Ruben. How are things in Colorado? You have named them all for dinner. Yes. This one is spaghetti. This one is backstrap. This one is sausage. Dan says all harvests are trophies, and that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. If you're going to let a bullet fly or an arrow fly, you have to be, in my mind, prepared to celebrate that experience. If you ever shoot something knowing that it's a little smaller than what you want or it's not what you want, don't shoot it. Now, I'm not saying like bear hunting, you walk up on a bear and you think it's a bigger bear than what it was. That's common. Nothing has ground shrinkage like a bear. But for example, a white-tailed buck, you have a pretty good sense of how big that animal is because you're looking at his rack. If you don't think you're going to be proud of the animal and want to share the harvest with your friends and tell the stories and the pictures, maybe not shoot it. Maybe shoot a doe. Jeff's a venison hunter. Johnny says, well, Johnny, you can text me because you have my cell number. Evening, Jerry. How are you? Thank you, Francis. I'll look forward to it. Tim says his camera just sent him several pictures of turkey marching in a straight line. Obviously going back to roost, but boy, it's dark for those birds to be going back to roost. Get the gasoline for the PS for Pastor. Good evening, Bruce. How are you? Craig's got some nice does on camera. They're definitely going to taste good. We've got some does. I just need to get them in front of me. Evening, Ed. How are you? Eric, how are you? Art says, I know hunting season is upon us, but looking back, how was fishing season this year? It was pretty good. I mean, it was good when we could get out. We had a lot of wind. Seemed like there was a lot of wind this year. Some people sit in the woods 20, 30 years, Paul says, never get anything. And if they decide to take a spike, it's because it's a first. Why not? I don't care. I mean, and I'm not being sarcastic here. I don't care what a fellow hunter shoots. I will celebrate that with you. As long as you're doing things legally, I'm not going to try to mandate my morals or ethics to you. You hunt the way you want to hunt. It's the shaming in the modern day whitetail world that gets me crazy. And it's pretty much what drove me away from deer hunting. I'm kind of working my way back into it. I will never have the passion that I used to, but I'm kind of getting back into it. I just have to make sure I don't let myself fall victim to all the anti-social media crap. Bobby said, I'd rather fill my freezer with a doe than a buck. Yes, he is. I laughed at the B word. Yes, I did, Johnny. I can laugh. Lori says, lots of duck hunters around right now. I was talking to Captain Mark Pananzik of Real Fishing. He's getting ready to get out there and do some duck hunting on the bay. Okay. So I told you I don't really buy into the modern day concept of naming them and trophy deer and all this kind of stuff. But I have succumbed to part of it. I think back to when I was a kid, we wore red wool and sat on a stump and waited for the first thing that was brown to walk by, and then we shot it. I don't go back to that level, but I do embrace in today's modern world, for example, my son James and our grandkids, my grandkids, his kids, are hunting on property that we lease. We were fortunate and blessed to find some lease property. And we have a great relationship with the landowners there. And we enjoy hunting there. It gives us a chance to hunt together. So we do have a lease. It's not a trophy lease. There are a few small bucks running around there and a fair number of does and fawns, but it's a lease. So we are hunting a lease. We are hunting over food plots for the most part. I'm hunting over food plots. James and T-Man, my son, like to hunt the runways and such, but I'm pretty much hunting over food plots. So I've given into that. And by the way, James, thank you for putting in those food plots. I didn't put them in. I was busy with other things. So he put in the food plots. And the third bit of modern day deer hunting that I have embraced is the use of trail cameras. Just before I went live here, I pulled up the trail cameras to see what was out there. So yeah, I'm not a purist, an old fashioned purist. I have embraced some of the modern deer hunting tactics and techniques. Mark's going to help you, Lori. Excellent, with the ladies layout shoot. Captain Jim, once I get the fifth wheel washed and waxed, the dock out and the pontoon out, I'll be ready to hunt. Busy time of fall. Was blessed with 2 8 points last year, just doe hunting this year. Good for you, Cap. Hey, by the way, Cap, next week I'm going to have Captain John Littlefield on the radio show to talk about Premier Maritime Training, where you and I both got our captain's licenses. Jim, I'll come back to this, but it's a great point. EHD has hit pretty hard on his farm. That's a shame because where EHD has hit hard, it can be decimating to a particular local deer population. The good news is this cold weather and some frost should knock it down, but the damage has been done for the most part. So I'm sorry to hear about that. That is a topic of discussion on the radio show this week. I will come back to that. Eric, I still wear the black and red plaid hunting pants and jacket. Cool. Hey, good evening, Ed. How are you? Ed, I know you were hunting with Johnny. How did you do? I know you're heading down to hunt with Bill Piles of Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters. Good luck to you. Gene, thank you. I appreciate the congrats on the bear. Josh, how are you? Nice to have you along with us. Tim, while we hunt as a family, I get more excited when my wife or daughter take a deer. I get that completely, Tim. We use cell cameras. Cell cameras. Oh, you did. Excellent. Excellent. Spotted pheasant, St. Clair County. The season opens October 20th. So let me come back to this weekend's Outdoor Magazine radio show rundown. I start out talking with a friend of mine, retired DNR fisheries technician, Don Barnard. We're talking primarily about fall muskie fishing. He said this is a great time of year to get out muskie fishing. As the temperatures drop, those fish become more active. Although as I'm talking to him on the phone this morning to record the show, he's in North Dakota. So we talked a lot about North Dakota and we talked about bird hunting out there. Then my last guest of the first hour is Tom Weston from the DNR talking about the Sportsmen Against Hunger program. If you have extra venison, you can donate that to families in need. I think it's a win-win all the way around. In hour number 2, a conversation that I think is very interesting because this is one of my, what would it be? I don't know how to describe what this is. This is one of the things I really believe in. Anyway, the guy I'm talking to is Nick Green, formerly of MUCC. You might remember Nick from MUCC. He's now at the Nimrod Society. Now, think about this for a minute. I kind of had a connotation of Nimrod being kind of like a loser and a dork and whatever. You know, oh, what a Nimrod. Didn't know this. I should know this, but I didn't. That Nimrod was actually a celebrated hunter in the Bible. So the Nimrod Society is a group that has been formed to promote and encourage and protect hunting and shooting in the outdoor sports here in Michigan and beyond. They said that, Nick said that the R3 program that has been for the last 10 years, retain, recruit, reinvigorate. to try to bolster hunter numbers just flat out hasn't worked. It's not working, unfortunately. So there's a new direction, a new tactic that actually I've been talking about this for a while, and I didn't consciously realize that other groups were coming to the same conclusion and we were all talking the same thing and working the same direction. And I've talked about this here before, sorry, that what we need to do rather than try to convert people to be hunters is try to convince the 80% of the population in Michigan who are non-hunters that what we are doing is biologically sound, that we pay for conservation, and that we are good people. So I think it's a very interesting conversation with Nick Green. Then Adam Bump from the DNR joins me to talk about the upcoming pheasant season. This week's Ask Avery segment. I'll come back to that in a minute. And then we wrap it up third hour with Tom Lounsbury, a very well-known outdoor writer, an expert when it comes to guns and hunting. We talk about pheasant hunting in Michigan. And then we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. I see Tony has got some pictures here. I'll take a look at them in a minute. This week's Ask Avery question comes from Matt Zimmerman. Speaking of EHD, he says, "Hey, Mike, I've been hearing a lot of whitetails have been dying from EHD. I work in the East Grand Rapids area, and the clients I work with are telling me they have found dozens upon dozens of dead deer. Do you know anything about this? Are the animals safe for human consumption?" I kind of knew about it. I kind of knew the answers to it, but I thought I'm going to reach out to a real expert. So I got Chad Stewart from the DNR on. In short, the answer to this week's Ask Avery segment sent to me by Matt Zimmerman. The way to get me those questions is send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Don't send them to me in a social media message. Chad says, listen to this. Yep. We are in our worst outbreak of EHD since 2012, more than a decade. Most counties south and west of Grand Rapids have locations being affected. There is no health concern to humans or pets like dogs and cats. Deer are safe to eat, but generally speaking, it's recommended not to consume sick deer. While EHD has killed thousands of deer this fall, not every deer that has EHD will die, and deer that recover from EHD are fine to eat. So statistically, we will not see a significant percentage of the Michigan deer herd killed by EHD this year, statewide. But locally, in the areas where it hits, it can be very severe, even devastating. And Chad said hunters will definitely, in those areas hit by EHD, will definitely see fewer deer this year and probably even next. Yep, it is. It's coming up. It is coming up for renewal. Yep, absolutely. I wouldn't want to let that thing lapse. It was so hard to get it. I wouldn't want to let it lapse for sure, right? Craig says he's got cell cams out on state land. It helps eliminate stands that aren't having good movement. Has anybody ever bothered your cell cams? Cliff says times have changed. I fondly remember the good old days of hunting. I do too. But we can't let the tradition go. I keep looking over at that picture of you, Johnny, that close-up of you looking at me from my other monitor. We can't let the tradition get away just because we are old curmudgeons or frustrated. All right, Rabbit Homesteading, have a good night. I'm glad you were able to check in. Rick said, listening to your show and hearing Amy Trotter, I joined MUCC, got the magazine. What a great publication. Thank you, Rick. I'm going to screenshot that right there. And I'm going to send that to my friends at MUCC. Thank you. Save the photos. They will love to hear that. Education, that's what we've been doing for 10 years. Cliff will love to. Vera, what's that all about? Don't make me block you, Vera, but your picture right there makes me think that maybe you're in the wrong Facebook page. All right, Chris, I'll look forward to it. Tim says, learn from the DNR about how high to put them off the ground. I see. Lisa says, vote. True. Vote. Have had some stolen. My SD card camera was locked. Nobody messed with them. Of course, my trail cameras are not marked, so anybody would have to be accidental. What are you saying here, Art? I'm trying to get you. All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. See you next week. Craig. Oh, how nice. Craig Plowman. A lot of the people on here tonight know Craig. And I will tell you this, the guy, first of all, he's a mountain of a man. He's bigger than I am, but he's an absolute sweetheart. He's the nicest guy, the most generous guy, the most hardcore outdoorsman. He's a family guy, very generous. Craig is just a great guy. So when I hear him say that he got his grandpa's 308 British rifle out to hunt with it, how cool is that? Jim Morris, I also joined from her being on the show. Well, let me just get you in here too. Because just got to hit the right keys, Mike. Every person who joins, it's great. Strength in numbers. Add to photos. Strength in numbers. Hey, Brian, good evening. How are you? Brian, we're seeing some activity on the trail cameras. One decent-sized buck's been wandering around. My grandson Trent saw him during daylight, but mostly at night. You know, Tim, this is interesting. Tim says his cameras have GPS built into them. I wish all of our cameras had GPS built into them, because even on our lease property, which isn't that big, I can't even tell you how big it is. I don't remember. If one of us sets a camera out and it's not on a food plot and somebody else goes to find it to change batteries, they can be hard to find. I wish they all had GPS built into them so you could call them up on the app and they would walk you right to the camera. That would be great. People who have found, I'll leave them alone, make a funny face for me to see when I get my pics. Good. That's the way it should be. James checking in a little late. No problem there, James. I get it. Very good evening. Michael, how are you? Glue an air tag on it. Oh, Jim. Thank you, Jim. That's actually a great idea. Put air tags on them. Thank you, Cap. Nice, nice, nice. That's a great idea. Great idea. Good. I had 3 big 8s. Why are you getting all those deer over there, Ryan? We're not that far apart. GPS or an air tag would help with a stolen camera too. Jim, I like this, Cap. This whole concept of putting an air tag on there. That's nice. Oh, nice. Craig says reveal camera show you where you are, where the camera is, and where the lot lines are. I like that a lot. Somebody mooned you. I was wondering about that. I was going to say something about that, but I didn't. Yeah, to find a trail camera to moon. Tony, let me see your pictures here. Oh, Tony. 14 years in a row. Nice buck, Tony. You're a hunting fool, buddy. Congrats. Oh, I got to see a picture. Oh, there's my new grandbaby Bean. He's a beautiful boy. We're so blessed to have a new grandson. Where was I at here? Spy Point. That's what we're using, Tim. Spy Point. Would help with a stolen camera. There is no more Avery discount at Brenton. Brenton has changed hands. They have new owners. I'm not working with them, although I still shoot my Brenton 350 Legend with a suppressor. That is the gun that I took my Michigan black bear with, and I will use it for deer season as well. Well, thank you, Vera. I appreciate that very much. Interesting. Brian says, we made a sanctuary we've never been in the last 10 years. That's, yes, we do have a couple of flexes, but most of them are not. Interesting point, Brian. I first heard about this concept talking with Greg Abish years ago of A-Way Outdoors. And that is that you set part of your property aside as a sanctuary and you never go in there. The only reason you would go in there would be to recover an animal. Other than that, you just stay out of there. We do not have any place like that we have intentionally set aside as a sanctuary. We have an area we haven't gone into. but I wouldn't consider it a sanctuary. 15 acres. Also, at the property we're leasing right now, they are doing some selective logging. Now, I thought it would disrupt the deer more than it has, but the loggers are out of there by 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you watch the pictures, um, the deer are not bothered by those loggers at all. So I'm glad. I'm glad. Hey, George, good evening, buddy. How are you? Nice to have you along with us on this edition of Wednesday Night Live. I'm getting ready here. I'm going to do some deer hunting this fall. And I'm also, if Jim Hoppy's still on here, I am very much interested this year in doing some night fishing after dark for walleye, but not trolling, casting from the shore and from the piers and from the riverbanks. In fact, Jim tells me after I describe the marina where I keep the Angler Quest in the summertime, he says, Avery, there's no reason that you can't go in there in the fall, pretty soon now, after dark, and throw a body bait and catch walleye after dark. He said, pretty much anywhere. I can't do it right now. Can I do it? Oh, I can. Done. Pretty much anywhere. Yeah, she's gone. That you see shad busting up, it's because the walleye are busting them up. So that's one of the things I really want to do this year is cast for walleye after dark. I can do it there in the marina. There is a channel that comes off the river that leads back into the marina. And I think the point where the channel and the main river meet would be a very good spot because there's a current break there. There is some structure there, and there's a great big street light there to throw a shadow on the water to attract bait fish, and bait fish attract big fish. So I'm real excited about giving that a try. I thought I just did this. It still keeps coming up. Hey, Mike, good evening, buddy. How are you? Michigan outdoorsman. I loved your story about the grouse walking up on you. Pretty cool. It says I blocked her, but she's still here. I apologize, folks. I'll get her afterwards. George just did an article on late season walleye. George, tell me more. Who do you write for, George? George says he just did an article on late season walleye. Is it late season walleye trolling or late season casting? Speaking of late season, I think I want to get Sir Lancelot on the radio show next week. I don't think Lance is with us now. He's probably getting ready for his live stream. The Fisherman Magazine. Very cool. Very cool. Casting. Very cool. Very cool. Aside from having Captain John Littlefield, a Premier Maritime Training, on the show next week, the radio show, I think I will get Lance Valentine, Sir Lancelot, I call him, of Teaching Fishing on the show to talk about his fall fishing. Bill Hoffman, the most interesting man in Michigan and the author and composer of the Ballad of Mike Avery. Again, I thought I was really special because Bill Hoffman, the most interesting man in Michigan, wrote a song about me. Then I realized he wrote a song about like 30 people. Why do I call this guy right here the most interesting man in Michigan? Well, law enforcement, wedding officiant, podcaster, author, traditional bow hunter, softball umpire, composer. How many people can put that many titles on their name? I can't. So anyway, Bill, stay tuned, and you're going to hear your song in about 6 minutes. I'm going to use it to get out of this tonight. Bill, I did use it. If you go back and watch this, I did use it to get into this live stream. I think it's better suited to get out of it. So what I'm going to do is use my traditional, more hardcore rock music to get into Wednesday Night Live. And I'm going to use the Ballad of Mike Avery that you wrote and produced to get out of it. It's really very cool, though. Ed says he was just racing a woodcock with a Tahoe. Who won? Mike says casting off the piers in the fall is fun. Get walleye, burbot, whitefish, and lake trout. Mike, is that all after dark, or do you do that in the daytime? Brent James, sorry I'm late. Thin blue line. Brent, you know how I feel about this. My dad was a cop for 35 years. I grew up in a law enforcement family. I have much respect for law enforcement. I've often said if I wasn't doing this, I probably would have ended up as a cop. I have much respect. I worked for several years as a VCO, a volunteer conservation officer, and much respect for those guys as well. So my friends who are on here, who are in law enforcement, who were in law enforcement, I got your back. Brent, I appreciate it. Tigers won. I heard that. Tigers won. Tigers won. And here's the thing. When my dad was a cop starting back in the early 60s, now, yeah, it was an interesting time then because there was a lot of racial strife. There were riots. But it was a different world. I think the people who are actively in law enforcement today have to deal with stuff that previous generation of cops couldn't even have ever fathomed. You can't do anything without being on camera. Every move you make is scrutinized. And I'm not saying there aren't bad cops. Of course there are. I don't care what profession you're talking. If you get enough people, you're going to get some bad ones. I don't care if it's a pastor. You get enough pastors in a room, you're going to have a bad pastor. But not you, Pastor Joe Llewellyn, or not our pastor, Seth Kaiser. They're both good ones. Craig, I didn't know that. Much respect. He was surprisingly fast, but the V8 won in the end. Plus, he flies off in the swamp and he didn't follow. Hour. Oh, I knew what you meant, Craig. I just didn't know you were in law enforcement. Dave Mason's with me. His dad, Dave Mason, Charlie Mason was his dad, and he was a lieutenant in the lieutenant, right? Or captain in the Saginaw City Police Department. And I worked with Charlie Mason when I was a reporter at TV5. Hey, Ken, how you doing, buddy? Ken says, congrats on the new grandson. I appreciate that very much. It was, well, you heard the prayers in church, Ken. Several weeks there of prayers. And I was telling our pastor, Seth Kaiser, I said, Pastor, I'm not saying this was a miracle, that the baby was very healthy. He's small, but he's very healthy. But there is no doubt in my mind that the positive outcome of that baby was because of all the prayers. No doubt in my mind. So to me, it was yet another real life in your face example of the power of prayer. So thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. And because actually I got two pictures in my other monitor. I've got a picture of my new grandson. We call him Bean. And I got a picture of Johnny Bowler with a swollen lip. Mainly at dark, but Lakers you can get in the daytime. Walleye, well, but nighttime can be better. Yeah, I get it. Okay, let me start this so Bill Hoffman, the most interesting man in Michigan, can enjoy it.
In the heart of Michigan's woods and streams, Mike Avery's voice fulfills the dream. Started out on TV5, a young man keen. Now hosts the best outdoor scene.
That is such a nice song. And again, it's hokey that I play it. It's egotistical that I play it. But I have to be honest, I thought it was quite an honor, even though he wrote songs for a lot of people. And I do appreciate it, Bill. I appreciate it very, very much. 15 years. Excellent. Poor Johnny can't catch a break.
Every heart you embrace brings us closer to nature's grace. In all those hunts,
I thought Bill Hoffman had an excellent voice, and he said, Avery, I'm not singing that. That's AI. Well, the AI has a great voice too. Tony said he could listen to it all day long. Jim, talking about Back in the Blue. I know your background. Martin, Mad Jack. Johnny did catch a beat. Oh, here we go.
Oh, my Avery, master of the wild, your stories and laughter keep us beguiled. Every fish that you catch,
It's kind of
every
a cool
heart
song.
you embrace brings us closer to nature's grace.
Very happy with the 350 Legend. 350 Legend did an excellent job. Well, I have the power to fade it out. All right, my friends. My name's Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. The radio show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.
Closer to nature's grace. In the heart of Michigan's woods and streams,
timed it out about
Mike
right.
Avery's voice fulfills the dream. Every fish that you catch, every hunt you embrace brings us closer to nature's grace.
I think I'll just do a shorter version. That's a little long. All right, my friends. Thanks for joining me. Have a great night. I appreciate it.